All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Well, some channels celebrate when they get 3 million subscribers, some celebrate when they get 300,000 subscribers, but here on BBOR, we celebrate 300 subscribers. And a big thank you goes out to every single person who has listened. In fact, maybe when you're listening to this, it'll have gone down to 299. Sometimes people unsubscribe, but let's hope that that doesn't happen. Well, yes, it's been a good year so far for the channel. We've covered a lot of subjects, and I have to say, though, it's been a real pleasure to be kind of just all over the map, just to be talking about absolutely anything that is just somewhat fascinating. However, though, I do have to admit, we're probably going to be covering a lot more true crime cases on this channel, as opposed to some of the political things, and opposed to some of the other stuff like the CIA and the New World Order and even the Illuminati and stuff like that. Yeah, we had some discussions on those things. But the issue is, I can see that it's just not that popular, and I do love covering the true crime cases, but I really also love getting your comments and kind of interacting with you guys about the cases. And we're going to do some more stuff about the Zodiac Killer. We've got some upcoming stuff on the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, which is perhaps the most famous disappearance case in the entire world. So those cases are things that maybe we'll get some major breakthroughs with. And I do mean that. Once again, it's not like some guy like me and a small channel like this, behind the black box, is going to solve all of these world events and just give the perfect answers to everything. But what we can do is perhaps we could kind of eliminate some of the kind of muddied waters that we have, if you will, please excuse the expression, about these kind of high profile cases. Also, just to ask you guys, what do you think about some of the things like Jack the Ripper, the Black Dahlia? Would you want to hear about some of those things? The only stuff we've ever mentioned about the Black Dahlia on this case is kind of talking about Steve Hodel and his father, George Hill Hodel, who was the prime suspect in that one. And that's kind of like, we covered him because he's also a Zodiac Killer suspect, and Steve Hodel wrote an entire book about it called Most Evil Part 2. I can't really subscribe to that theory. I personally don't believe that George Hill Hodel was the that he was the Zodiac Killer. Maybe he was the Black Dahlia Avenger. And we could explore that one, but is that a case of fascination? I'm not so up to date on the Black Dahlia, so we'd have to really kind of spend a lot of time with that, because I don't want to go into that one half-cocked. The same way I haven't talked about Jack the Ripper yet. I mean, years ago, I went through some of the Jack the Ripper stuff. Who hasn't? Anyone in true crime probably has some connections to Jack the Ripper. But once again, I don't want to go into that one until we've got, a very, very clear understanding. I mean, I probably could even tell you a possible suspect that I would have right now in Jack the Ripper, but I'm going to just keep my lips sealed until we can actually kind of do a little bit more research and put out, do a series of uploads the way we normally do. Another case that we can get back to is the Texarkana Moonlight murders, because it's very possible we might have contributed something to the discussion. The guys who researched the Texarkana Moonlight murders, which was a series of murders from 1946 in Texarkana, Texas, on the border of Arkansas. And it's a very similar case to the Zodiac Killer. You got this guy wearing a hood targeting lovers' lanes, and you have two guys out there that are named John Tennyson and Jeremy Kennington. Really did some excellent research about the Texarkana Moonlight murders, and I mean, my stuff will never parallel their kind of intense, deep dive, very detailed research. But maybe we're getting close to kind of just sharing something with that case. So we got to do some of those things over the course of the next couple months and up to the end of 2019, where we are right now. Now, it kind of pains me to say, but we're probably going to be doing fewer political uploads on the channel. I love the political stuff, and anytime we would kind of do this sort of announcement and the upcoming on BBOR, upload, I would always say, I know the political stuff isn't that popular, but it's not going anywhere. That's what I would always say, and I'm not going to say that we're going to ban talking about politics. How can we do that? We have the election coming up in 2020. Black Box Radio was talking about the presidential election back in 2017. You can't ban it completely, but I do recognize that not only is it not the most popular subject in the world for a channel like this, it's also the market is overly saturated with political uploads, and people can listen to that stuff and on various other channels. And politics is a very sour game, mind you. And even when you're talking about politics, even from just a channel where you're going to have, some guy like me, it's like when you start interacting with different perspectives, doing the kind of, not exactly research, you're just listening to commentary shows as well, you just get the soured feeling and you feel depressed for the sake of humanity. We won't have a complete ban on politics, but it's like we're going to do fewer political uploads and definitely more true crime. Now, I made an announcement video recently, a couple months ago, mind you, and we said one of the things, though. If you would like to be a guest on this program, probably it would be like after October of this year, if there's a true crime case that you want to talk about, or, we didn't ban politics, you can talk about that, or the CIA, the New World Order, historical conspiracies or something. Like, we did that one upload once. Ludwig von Mises was a Rockefeller shill. Maybe the most popular upload of all time, hence the sarcasm. Yeah, but if you'd like to be a guest on this program and talk about absolutely anything, that's one of the things that we're hopefully going to do. Not exactly like traditional interviews, but, like if you do want to do something like that, probably after the 1st of October, we could arrange something like that. And then, you can you can just we can just discuss it. And that would be something that we could do, put out the recording. So you wouldn't just only hear me talking. When I was listening to a podcast from Jay Moore, who hosts More Stories on Podcast One, I haven't heard any of his stuff since 2017, I believe. But he was just like saying he didn't like to do the podcast with one person, where it's just like one person talking to himself. Obviously, I love that. Every single upload on BBOR has been that way. But what we want to say is that, like some topics, maybe you want to talk about the Zodiac Killer or Madeleine McCann. The cases we just mentioned, the Black Dahlia and Jack the Ripper, I'd have to really, really get more familiar with those before we can have a solid discussion. But recently we've covered the disappearance of Timothy Pitson, which is something that I want to keep going with because we have a long way to go with that one. We have a lot of hard evidence. And right now, since I'm covering this stuff right now on BBOR, I just have such a huge urge to drive out to the Midwest, to go to Illinois and to Wisconsin, and just to kind of look at that stuff firsthand. And the first time I really had that urge was with the Moore Murray case, of course. I thought about planning sort of a holiday trip with the family, and we can just go to New Hampshire, but they don't really know. I'm just going to be retracing Moore Murray's last steps on Route 112. And then the disappearance of Henry McCabe was another one where I was like, I really just thought about being in Minnesota for even a month or something like that to learn about the case. But what we can say is that the disappearance of Timothy Pitson will be another case that we can cover. What other cases do you want to hear about? There must be something in the true crime world, as well as the other stuff, like if you're into any sort of conspiracy theory. John F. Kennedy, the Kennedy assassination, is perhaps the biggest conspiracy theory of all time. Right now in our current day and age, it's really like almost a tie between the Kennedy assassination and 9/11 truth. And we've mentioned a lot of things associated with 9/11 truth, but we've never done a specific upload on it. But something like the Kennedy assassination, something that you guys would want to talk about, I'm not sure how much I would be able to contribute to that one. I find that it's the conspiracy theory skeptics that get me so much more riled up than the actual theories themselves, because it's like those are the things that I can't stay away from, because I want to know what they're saying about how does the conspiracy theorist think and what are the motivations, and also the things with your research that you can do, like what can you use to look at somebody's research to find the authenticity of their presentation. Or it's not exactly like logical fallacies, but is it kind of a weak point in their presentation? Like maybe they'll state a fact that is true and then explain the vast conspiracy, or they will state true facts but But in between, they might say some things that are unproven, or that it's just conjecture and surmise and speculation, things that they do not have certainty of. It's a very famous expression about how conspiracy theorists take true facts and they create fictitious connections to put it all together. Lots of the skeptics about that talk about that stuff. So that's another subject that I'm probably going to be covering on the channel. That stuff will not get 1 million views. That stuff won't even get 100 views probably. And I know it's just listening because this is a podcast, but it's just something that I just like talking about, and I think we've had some really good discussions on that. Also, I've been getting a little bit more into William Cooper recently. It would have been a plan that I've been meaning to do for a long time. We did one upload a couple months ago about William Cooper, and just because we mentioned conspiracy theories, so I thought I'd say something about that. Really coming soon on this channel, we might do some stuff about not only William Cooper as a conspiracy theorist and behold a pale horse, but also the death of William Cooper and look into what happened just with the bizarre circumstances surrounding his death. Also, I'm hoping to get back into the death of Alan Berg, the guy who was murdered by the Order. Like, he was the subject of the movie Talk Radio, and the book by Stephen Singular about him is called Talked to Death. I would love to just kind of do things all about that because we had a few comments come in on the Alan Berg upload that I did, and it's like I can't kid around with you guys. We got a lot of anti-Semites that tune into YouTube from time to time, and sometimes they pop up here and there, and that happened to be one of the places. I got into an argument with an anti-Semite on, just a different newsreel. It was on YouTube, but it's just like the news, a news clipping. And I got into a very, very limited argument with someone talking about how we don't need more Jews. Some people are like, just stay away from the trolls. And 95% of the time, I don't interact with trolls. The other 5% of the time, I do. And it's just, I know that stuff like, well, it just got me thinking about the comments that we received, the anti-Semitic comments that we had on the Alan Berg upload. That's the only reason why I mentioned it. So I want to get back into that case because I just want to kind of hear more about it. And a thing that I might do is I might just try to get my hands on a copy of Stephen Singular's book, read it in its entirety. And, like Stephen Singular is also the guy, mind you, who says that O.J. Simpson was innocent. And we've stayed away from O.J. Simpson for a while because he is, I think we've probably done enough on O.J. Simpson for a long time. I'll probably get back into it at some point because, as I said before on the channel, that is the one case that you just never stay away from. You can't let it go for some reason. But right now, I think we're doing a good job of that, and we're going to be covering lots of other cases. And, it's like I also want to do a little bit more with secret societies and just look at some of the current movements, like separatist movements and stuff like that. And I was so tempted to do an upload, and I'm glad that I didn't, about separatism, like just about the plan to turn Texas into 5 different states. Like, there was the Six Californias initiative, which was started by this guy, Tim Draper, to turn California into 6 separate states, although one of them, was actually more than one, are just part of existing movements. And there's a plan to turn Texas into 5 different states, and I thought about doing an upload on the channel. I'm so glad that I did it, because then I thought, wait a second, that's probably going to be pretty boring for a lot of people, and I don't know. I think it takes a certain type of channel to present that. Maybe something such as Fox News would have a great discussion on separating Texas into 5 states. And I'm saying that facetiously. I just meant that would reach kind of an audience that might want to hear more about that, or I don't even know if that's true. I'm just being silly, to be honest. But I don't know if Black Box Online Radio would be the place to do something like that. Not to mention, it's a very, very short discussion for some channel like this to be talking about the cases like that. But anyway, let's hope that we can kind of continue with a lot of the true crime cases. We're going to stay away from some of the political stuff, but probably stay away from some of the secret society conspiracy things because, once again, I want to put things out that not only I am fascinated with and that I find very enthralling, but hopefully you guys will too. And I really love the things you've been saying about the true crime uploads. We're having some very good discussions about a lot of the cases. And once again, this is not just me. I'm not just the one talking. We also have the things that are coming from you guys about how you really participate in the discussions, and it's when the people come together that we can have the kind of steps that move it forward to getting a closer answer to what happened with the true crime case, and hopefully one day some of these things will all be solved. I know that's a very big thing to hope for, but I'm not a realist. I'm an idealist. I strive toward the ideal, and I hope that I can see a lot of that in my lifetime. Is it possible that we're going to get an answer to who the Zodiac Killer was, or even better yet, what happened with all of the Zodiac Killer mystery? Because I think it's a lot more complicated than it's just who was the Zodiac Killer. And any of you guys who've been following along with the Zodiac Killer uploads on this channel and on other channels, you'll probably agree with that. There's something going on that is not like a traditional serial killer case or like a traditional true crime murder. I mean, this is quite different with the case of the Zodiac Killer. And we might do a few more serial killer uploads, but that's mostly just to talk about the political side. Boring, right? But no, to talk about the kind of advancements in our education system and the mental health system, then legislation that could be put in place to improve education and kind of mental health, mental awareness, mindfulness, all of those things. I know it's boring, but maybe we'll mention it a little bit because it's kind of like true crime, but it's